Well, welcome. Today's workshop will be focusing on networking and relationships, including identifying people either already in your network or those you could be adding to, as well as how to facilitate those connections. So first, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Michelle Marks Hook. I'm the Alumni Volunteer Program Director in the Greene Center for Career Education and Connections. And basically what that boils down to is that I network with alumni and employers pretty much all day long. So you would think that I would love doing networking, but I'm here to tell you I don't. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about are more the strategies that make me more comfortable doing it. So I'm also joined by my colleague, Katie. So if she could introduce herself, and then we're going to have each of you kind of introduce yourself and, tell us your name, your class year. And I'd be interested to know one place you'd like to go on vacation. So I will share with you that someday I would like to go to New Zealand. So Katie, tell us about
That sounds like a good plan. Hi, everyone. I think I remember meeting someone here, Katie, I think yesterday. My name is Katie Ferruza. I'm a career advisor at the Greene Center. I work on our first year initiatives, and I'm part of the exploratory community with Michelle. I've always wanted to go to the UK. I have never made it there. I've never been to Ireland, England, any of those places. So when all this craziness is over, I would love to do that. And do you want me to call on people, Michelle? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that'll probably be easiest.
Sure. Well, I see Katie here, so would you mind sharing first? Just unmute yourself and.
Hi, my name is Katie Hall, and I'm a freshman, and I'm an intended environmental science major. The place that I've always wanted to travel to is Argentina because I really love speaking Spanish, and they have a really interesting accent there. So
Love it.
yeah.
Awesome. That does sound like fun. Belle?
Yeah, hi, I'm Belle. I'm a sophomore. I'm studying ecology and evolutionary bio with a minor in environmental humanities. If I could, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, the video's just stopped. So if I could go anywhere, I would say probably Russia, maybe. That could be fun.
Oh,
cool.
That's so interesting. I was just talking to one of my students, and she is studying, she lives in Moscow. And so I was talking to her today. So that's really cool.
Very nice.
There's a networking connection right there, right?
Right
there. Let's see. Konstantin? I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Feel free to correct me.
Hey, yeah, Konstantin. I'm actually from Russia, so there you go.
Oh!
I'm a sophomore. I'm gonna major in data science. So, and I think I want to go to Japan because I've never been to Asia. So I'm from the European part of Russia. So
very cool. And Benjamin.
Hi, I'm a junior. I work at Wilson Commons, and I would love to go to Sweden. I've just been seeing so many beautiful pictures of mountains and pretty lakes. I want to go there.
Nice. That does sound nice.
Yeah, especially now. Well, thank you for sharing. We'll go ahead. I always just like to start off with something that's not so heavy. So find out where people want to go is always fun. And knowing that we have someone from Russia and someone that wants to go to Russia, this is how those networking connections start. So our hope is at the end of the session, you'll understand the importance of talking to people and developing relationships and what that has on your career development. We're hoping you're able to identify resources to help you connect to those people and able to identify strategies to build and maintain those relationships. So obviously we're all aware of all the changes in the world that have gone on this year. And since we no longer have those natural interactions with in-person events, we have to be more deliberate and proactive in these networking efforts. So before we kind of go into things, I want to just get a sense of what everyone's true feelings are about networking. So I'm going to launch a little poll, and if you could just answer, hopefully you can see that. Can everybody see the poll?
It doesn't have for me anyway.
Let's see.
Say relaunch poll 1, I think.
I
Yeah.
saw it and I was able to respond. So
Oh, you were?
All right.
Okay, maybe it's just me. Don't worry about it, Michelle.
It just went away for me. So I think, oh, there it is. Okay, it's back.
All right. So I'm going to end this and we're going to relaunch it again. Okay. Sorry about this technical
I think
difficulty
it just
here.
disappeared again.
Oh my goodness.
All right, it's back.
It's
And-
back?
No, it's not.
Oh my gosh. See, now it's so weird because I can see it. Okay, hold up. Okay, do you have a poll?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have questions on your poll?
The joys of Zoom, right?
I know. I know. All right, I'll give you guys one more second and then we'll end our poll. So hopefully everyone has had an opportunity. As I already shared with you, for me, it's not one of my favorite things, but it's what I get paid to do. So I have to network all day long. All right. So it looks like for many of you, there's some anxiety, and that every time I pick up the phone or, log into a Zoom meeting and have to talk to someone that I don't know, anxiety always fills me. I'm hopeful that's good too, because obviously you're looking more at maybe these are some things that opportunities, if that's the way we're looking at networking. So thank you for sharing that. So like I stated, whether we like it or not, we are at some point, we have to basically interact with people for a variety of purposes. Sometimes meeting people new can provide amazing opportunities. So I think that's where some of that hopeful comes into play. The people around us, whether we know them or not, can be allies in how we interact with the world. They can help us create new ideas, and being curious through exposure to different opportunities with the class projects, finding internships, joining clubs, or even just getting directions to the local grocery store. Obviously, we had someone who's interested in going to Russia. We have someone from Russia right there. Those can be a relationship that can start to talk. And that's a informal networking relationship. So basically, I want us to rethink about what networking is. I'm here to assure you that there's no need to panic, and we're just going to break it down to what it actually is. So here I have 3 different things that we can talk about for our purpose of networking. The first is gaining information. This is, gathering advice about career fields, industries, organizations, specific jobs. Your job here is to be a sponge, to get as much information from people you're connecting with as possible. Another thing that we can use networking for is opportunities. I'm sure you've heard the statistic where 80% of positions are found through networking and not posted. So we can learn about job opportunities at a company. The job I currently have, I actually found through networking. So I had been a part of an organization. I was actually working at another college. I was a part of this organization, and one of the women there connected with me, and we started talking about kind of my goals in life and things like that. And she was working at the U of R, introduced me to her director. One thing led to another, a position was created, and here I am, and I've been here now for 10 years. So learning about those opportunities is really important, and we'll talk about how you can ask about opportunities without being so forceful. And finally, connecting with individuals who share those common interests and experiences. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. These are things that you've been doing your entire life. When you walked into kindergarten and someone had the same blue shirt on that you did, you knew that you shared something in common. You both liked the same color. So if we think about it differently, I think we'll all succeed very well with networking. And the good news is that you already have a network. So this graphic kind of gives you some examples of people who might already be part of your network, where we may find others to connect. So we've got our peers, these are people that, have been in your classes, and these can even go back to high school. as well as now, in college, any sort of research you've done, past employment. Social events right now, they really aren't taking place, but at some point, hopefully, clubs will start back up, fraternities and sororities will be able to hold events. And so these are places that you can start to meet people. LinkedIn, Handshake, Career Shift, and the Melia Collective are where we can find alumni, and we'll talk a little bit more about those resources a little bit later on. Industry professionals are those that you might meet at a conference, those that you've worked with. If you join any sort of organization that's affiliated with your industry, those are important in industry professionals. We've always got family and friends, people, your parents' friends, and then faculty and staff. So those would be obviously your advisor, people at the Greene Center. All of these people are worthwhile to your entire network. And you never know who actually knows who. So we just want to kind of be open to whomever we're meeting. People around us can help us with all sorts of things, with ideating and prototyping and testing out ideas. So through exposure to these others and their new ideas and concepts, your curiosities can be heightened. So looking at this chart, think about one of these pillars. I'll say that they're pillars right now, and just put in the chat which one you're thinking you want to focus on. So as we go through some of these strategies, who would you want to kind of reach out to, and just put those in the chat. Katie can let me know kind of, if you're focusing on peers, if you're focusing on alumni, if you want to focus on faculty, because it might help us drive and narrow down kind of how to use these strategies we talk about.
So far, I'm seeing quite a few alumni, one faculty.
Okay, good.
Another faculty.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think that's everyone.
Sweet.
So alumni and faculty, sounds like.
All right, perfect. All right, so sounds like half of you are going to focus on alumni, the other on finding some faculty members. So let's talk about those roles that these particular individuals kind of play within your own network. So there are actually 4 different roles that people play in your network. There's targets, supports, allies, and strategists. And the roles are pretty fluid. You might find one person who plays multiple roles within your network, and that's okay. That's fairly normal. So as we kind of discuss these, I want you to kind of think about your own network currently and some of the people that may fit into these categories for you. Now, right now, when we're talking about the targets, that was kind of what I'd ask, who do you think that you want to reach out to? So some of you are alumni, some of you are the faculty. So these targets are people that, might communicate opportunities to you. Most people have a lot of different targets in their network, but they may not necessarily have a depth of relationship with these individuals. And these, it can be, those alumni, staff in the department, your faculty members. We also have our supports, and these are the people that can speak to your ability as a professional. These are people that may have supervised you at a professional setting, your internships, past jobs, if you've done research in a lab. Now, these individuals may not know you super well at a personal level, but they can speak to your ability to perform, meet deadlines, work with a team, follow through on tasks and projects. These are basically the people that would write your letter of recommendation for an upcoming job or internship. Then we move on to the allies. These are the people you probably consider your, personal friends, close colleagues, close classmates. These are the people that help you make connections or share really important information with you. These are the people that you go to bounce ideas off. You might ask them to look over your application, help you with a mock interview. The Greene Center is always here to help for those things. But, a lot of times these allies, they're your cheerleaders. They're the people that are on your side. Then our fourth category of, roles in your network are those strategists. These are your go-to people. You may have one or two strategists in your network, and that's okay. These are the people you know very well and that you can trust. And these are the people you can be most transparent with, and they help you kind of give that reality check. So, if you're struggling with things, you can be really honest. Whereas, so my best example is if you're, a first year student and you're really struggling with what you want to do with your life, you may not walk into an employer and say, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Whereas if you find a strategist, someone that you can trust, you can say, I'm really confused. And then the strategist can help you, kind of build things up and maybe refer you to others in their own network that can help become your allies and help sort those things out. And once you have an idea of the different roles, you kind of know who to look to when you need certain things. So let's talk about these networking strategies. We've kind of looked at, how do we identify? So we've got our alumni right now and some faculty, and we can see where they may fit as far as their role. Are they a support? Are they an ally? But how are we going to actually do these networking? So broaden your scope. And I mentioned this briefly. Think of everyone you meet as a networking contact. So, again, we're not doing a lot of things in person. The Greene Center used to do several in-person networking events, so it allowed you to meet alumni. Melia Weekend was always a good time because there was hundreds of alumni and other friends of the university that you could meet. But those aren't happening. So we have to then move to other platforms to try to meet people. And that's basically where that social media for now is coming into play. We're really going to utilize a lot of that outreach and trying to make connections through social media. We'll discuss that, next, but we want to network often. So that's pretty much now, depending on where you are and what you're seeking, you're going to look for opportunities to meet as many people as you can. We want to make sure that we ask really intelligent questions when we're networking. We want to make sure that we have that elevator pitch, which presents that good story. We want to know ourselves, our skills, our interests, our qualifications. And for those of you, you may have heard the term elevator pitch, but basically the elevator pitch it shouldn't last any longer than 20 to 30 seconds, the length that it would take you to be in an elevator, hence the name. It should be interesting, memorable, and succinct. It needs to explain why you're unique. And finding out a reason to follow up, and keep building those relationships. As you keep up with these relationships, it will lead to other opportunities and to really allow you to develop and strengthen that already existing relationship. So we've covered how to figure out who we could contact. And since we're not doing anything in person, we really have to look more into that social media. So here I've put up some things that we can look at, and these are all ways to build and expand your professional network. LinkedIn, Melia Collective, and Handshake are great places to find people to have that informational interview with and start building a network. So we'll talk a little bit about each. Handshake, you probably have all utilized that. It's our opportunity recommendation tool and constant engagement platform where you can find jobs and things like that. But it also allows you to connect with students and alumni across the platform through peer-to-peer direct messaging. LinkedIn, I'm assuming most of you have heard of LinkedIn, and that's a good platform to utilize to find a large group of individuals that may be in those fields that you're interested in. And then we have the Melia Collective. And so this is basically LinkedIn for the U of R community. It connects students and alumni and parents who are affiliated with the university. So by using these platforms during kind of this period when we can't do anything in person, you can start to explore your career paths and what others have done within certain industries based on their majors, specific organizations, by reading these people's profiles. And then if you find somebody's profile that looks really interesting, we can start to reach out and start to look into doing an informational interview. So how many of you have heard of, you can put this just like in the chat, of the Melia Collective? Either yes or no. Katie, do we have
It
anybody
looks
that
like
knows?
yes, and I have yesterday. So
Okay.
fairly, oh, someone said no.
Okay.
So a couple yeses, or it's brand new, or there it looks like one person is not too familiar.
Okay. So for you that, I touched on a little bit, but the Melia Collective is an exclusive University of Rochester community of those alumni. There's some parents on there, there's staff and students who seek meaningful connections to help themselves and others achieve personal and professional growth. And so the screenshot I have here is just basically once you've made your profile on here, and Katie can put into the chat for those who didn't know about Melia Collective, how to actually join Melia Collective. And then once you get on, you can use these filters to look for people either based on major, what their degree, like if they have a PhD. And I should also point out that on the Melia Collective, it contains all the schools here. So it has, arts, science, and engineering. There's SMD alumni on there. Eastman is on there. Simon students are on there, as well as the alumni, and Warner School. So you may have interest in a lot of different areas, and you'll be able to find people based on that. You can also search by, particular companies. So the filters really allow you to break things down. You can see at the top, you can look at location. So if you're looking to relocate to somewhere, you may be able to find people there. You can also join groups on the Melia Collective. So we've divided those. There's several of them, but the Greene Center has those based on our career communities. So if you're interested in, healthcare, there's a healthcare group that you could join, and alumni will post things. Sometimes they may have an opportunity, or they may just post articles and things. And this is a good way to follow up and see kind of what's going on, in your little world of the U of R. So does anybody have any questions about the Melia Collective, LinkedIn, anything like that at this point? No? Do we look pretty good, Katie?
Yeah, we look good. I'm going to put into the chat, and maybe you're going to get to this, Michelle, but our link to our networking resources page that does have some sample networking notes as well, and one is specific to the Melia Collective. So if you're curious how to reach out, that's definitely something that the Greene Center can help you with, and there's a sample note on the page that I'm linking in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie.
No
And that
problem.
kind of goes into parts of the outreach email. So obviously, this is how we're kind of introducing ourselves to those individuals. So we've identified we want to find an alum. We've found their profile on Melia Collective or LinkedIn. So now how do we reach out to them? Well, we're going to look at 3 little steps. We want to introduce ourselves. Normally, we want to include our name, area study. If they're not from the University of Rochester, if they're not an alum, you may suggest that, or you can always say, be proud that you're from the University of Rochester. And you want to tell them why you want to talk to them. Now, when you're connecting with them, this could be around that shared affiliation. So the University of Rochester is a perfect one. Maybe you're basing it on that you have the same majors. It could be, you're interested in their industry. So something that you can connect. We want to then have that call for action. So ask for advice, information, where to go next, set up that informational interview. We do want to be considerate. As a person asking for the favor, it's respectful to acknowledge that the other person's time is valuable and how much you appreciate their consideration of your request. You can suggest some times you have available and how you would like to meet, but demonstrate that you are definitely willing to adapt by speaking, by phone or Zoom, or even corresponding just via email if that's how they would prefer. So I'm going to kind of slap up. So here's basically how it may look. So the way this is, so if you look at this, the first line is about them. So this is how they're kind of somewhat connecting. Your dedication to students is remarkable. So keep in mind, flattery goes a really long way. You can see then that they have put in as a rising sophomore at the University of Rochester. So that's giving their name and area of study. I'm writing to learn more about my options as a student. So pretty generic, excuse me, but it gets to the point of why you're reaching out. And then you're looking, here's your call to action. You want 20 to 30 minutes, next week to chat about your experience at the university and in their own career. Now, keep in mind, they may respond back and say, oh, no, I can't meet with you next week, but I can meet with you the following week. So that's where kind of that flexibility comes in. Sometimes students say, well, what type of things should I think about for my subject line for this email? Because if you just put in hello or something like that, or even a generic word like information, it could get filtered by their email program or might not seem important enough to open. So you want to compose the email first and then let the subject line act as a summary to what it is. Use 30 to 50 characters for easy readability on the platform. And you could use an example like Sally Smith recommended I contact you, or I found your profile on Melia Collective. I enjoyed your article in the Business Journal, or I enjoyed your recent podcast. So hopefully that will get it to, your things to be open. And remember, if you send it and you don't hear something, you can always follow up like a week later and just, say, I'm just following up on the other email, the recent email I sent last week, because sometimes, we all get really busy and things get lost in our actual email. So sometimes a reminder is good. Now, sometimes they may just be too busy or don't want to help at a certain time. And so if that's the case, I usually suggest, after 2 times, maybe 3, but after that, you kind of go, okay, I'm going to move on to another individual who may be able to help me. And don't take it as personal rejection. It's just people are busy. All right. So to make the most, so we've done our outreach now. And so now we have some pre-conversation strategies to make the most of that networking experience. The first thing is we encourage you to do some research. Not only will this help you think about your audience and who you're talking about, but it will help you to clarify your goals. Learning about the companies that this individual works for, learning a little bit about their background, and that's as easy as just looking through their LinkedIn profile and just digging a little deeper. You all go to the University of Rochester, so I know you know how to do research, and so just dig a little bit into understanding a little bit about this person and individual's background.
Michelle, can I just add something to this here?
Absolutely.
With the research, because a few people mentioned they're interested in reaching out to faculty in particular. And I think the type of strategy for the note probably remains the same, but when we're talking about research here, looking at the department websites, reading their bios, maybe a little bit about the research they've done, so that if you're trying to connect with them to get involved in research, which we know most research on campus is actually found through networking and word of mouth, you can talk about those things too. And I believe on our website there's a sample note for that too. So I just wanted to add that in here.
Oh, thank you for sharing that, Katie. So once you've done kind of research on the individual you're hoping to meet with or their company, you kind of have to know yourself. What are your values? What are your interests? What have you accomplished? What are your goals? Be able to kind of tell your own story, understand, because that will really impact the conversation and make it much more beneficial if you can articulate some of these things about yourself. When it comes to questions, obviously you can, Google a whole bunch of questions that you should ask. Be curious. Think about ways in which you could expand the knowledge from these conversations. You only have that 20 minutes, but you want to get the most out of these questions. And since we are doing things virtual, we need to think about the logistics. So since you're reaching out, you're going to be more or less responsible to set up the appointment. And once someone has agreed to actually meet with you, you want to send them that calendar invite with a link to a video app that you're using. So that could be Zoom or Google Hangouts or Microsoft Teams. Anything will work like that. The key is to make it easy for the people to attend. So even if these, individuals don't use those services, you want to make sure that they understand that they may have to download the software in advance, let them know if there's a password that they need, anything like that, so that there's no barriers. You also want to be considerate of time zones. So, like I said earlier today, I was talking to someone, she was in Moscow, and, for me, it was like, my lunchtime. And for her, she was preparing for bed because it was, getting later in the evening. So you want to be, when you're setting up times and say, well, I'm available from 9 to 5, you want to make sure that you're establishing what time zone you're in, because they may not be in the same time zone. So you want to make it conducive to both parties to be able to participate. Another thing that you've probably learned by being on a ton of Zoom meetings is think about your lighting. They always say don't have like a window or light behind you. It kind of washes your face out. Noise reduction. So when you're doing these, I usually have my cat running through here, so I try to make sure that my doors are closed if I'm doing anything like this. And, sometimes you can't prevent things from happening, but you want to try to do your best. I was on a meeting earlier today and my phone was going off, so had I been more mindful, I would have turned the ringer off before, but I wasn't thinking. So think about those things before you do these interviews. Also, when you are on your computer, you want to make sure that you've closed all your computer windows, because if you end up sharing something, you don't want something inappropriate or personal to pop up for that individual to see. So if you're, writing an email to your friend, it may be a little bit more casual than you may want this particular individual to see, or there just may be something that you just don't care to share with other people. We want to be aware of our body language. A lot of times you want to make sure that you're sitting up proper, even though you're on camera, you don't want to be lying down, and you want to make sure that you're looking at your camera. I can't tell you how many times there will be people who have their laptop and then they have like a second screen, and they're not looking at the laptop, they're looking at the screen over here reading something off, and that can be distracting. So you want to make sure that your eyes are on the camera so that it really does feel like it's a conversation, because obviously this is not the best, but it's what we have for now, and it's how we have to try to maintain the eye contact. We want to make sure that we're blinking so we don't look silly, and to smile on occasion, because those things are, because this world is so different, and even though we've been doing it since March pretty much, it's still kind of awkward, and not maybe the most conducive or casual feeling to have a conversation. So some of the things to keep in mind. Now, the big thing, people talk about, well, this is a casual informational interview, what do I need to wear? So I always like to err on the side of being overdressed versus underdressed. So a lot of times you'll want to maybe research the cultural norms for a particular industry, and understand the expectations of their dress code. A lot of times you'll want to have something like more business casual, if you will. Now this particular gentleman has, a suit on, and then he has pajama pants on the bottom. And we also kind of caution some things like that, because you may want to have the full outfit on, because if that cat jumps on your lap or the dog knocks, water on to your lap and you have to stand up and all of a sudden everyone sees, you may want to make sure that you have appropriate bottoms on. But, just like if you were in person, you want to make sure that your hair is, like nicely groomed, and that you have an appropriate outfit on. Make sure everything just fits well. You'll feel more confident and good about yourself. And I know this is more an informational interview, but you don't know who you're meeting. So you always want to make that first, impression a really strong, solid one. All right, so we've reached out, we've done our research, we've set up our time. Now here's our conversation. So now we're meeting with them. We've logged on to Zoom. We're fully dressed. We have tops and bottoms on. We're ready to go. So what do we need to do? First, that elevator pitch. This helps those new contacts understand why they should connect with you and consider you when an opportunity arises. It summarizes what you do. It's a really brief summary of your background, and you want to include the most relevant information, such as your education, your work experience, any key specialties or strengths. And if you're not sure what to include, this goes back to that research. Try writing everything that comes into mind about yourself down on a piece of paper. Once you've recorded it, go through, remove anything that's not absolutely critical to explaining your background and why you've got what your audience may be looking for. Why you could even look at your resume and look at some of those highlights. And then once you have it down to a few points, organize it in a way that makes sense in a story. So let's just use, for an example, I walk in and, I sign in to log in and I'm like, hi, my name is Natalie. It's so nice to meet you. I'm a junior biology major at the University of Rochester with a special focus in genetics and nutrition. I'm interested in the interplay of genetics and diet on obesity-related diseases in adults. I would love to hear how you got into your line of work. So use that elevator pitch to gain some advantage you need to accomplish two things within this communication. You're being memorable. So now you've kind of stated, okay, this person has an idea that they want to look at nutrition and genetics and how that affects obesity. And it can also make you somewhat unique. Now, you're also thinking about how you make a connection. So more than likely, this individual may have either done something within that field, so there's your connection, or they're an alum, so they've already gone to the U of R. So, something that makes them, alike is what we're thinking when it comes to that. After you've kind of introduced yourself, that's when those easy questions start coming. And these can just be your ice-breaking questions. For those that are looking for the alums, you can ask something like, who is your favorite professor at the U of R? What did you like about her? So this kind of starts to break down a little bit. Like one of my easy questions that I just asked you guys was, where do you want to go on vacation? So it was very light, very casual. Now, more than likely, you wouldn't start off with that with, your informational interview, because it's a different relationship that you're trying to build. But you could talk about something a little less than just jumping into, tell me all about your career and I want to know how to get a job. So easy questions, to start building that relationship and rapport. And then you want to get answers from your interviewee about things that you're curious about, such as the day-to-day responsibilities, the favorite part of their job, how their education prepared them for their role. You do, however, want to avoid matters such as asking about salary and anything real personal. I know politics are on everybody's mind lately, especially with the election so close, but we want to try to avoid those type of things and asking personal things about family, religion, those obvious things that we try to avoid. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to ask for that advice or connections to their network. So you can easily say, do you have any friends or colleagues you'd suggest that I talk to? Because this can lead to building your own network and leading to more opportunities.
I call that the $1 million question.
There you have it.
Who else can I talk to?
Yeah, who else? So how can I build this up? So once you've closed that conversation, you're going to want to follow up. And so here's a quick little, thank you note. And you want to kind of address the past, the present, and the future. So thank you for your time yesterday. Your suggestions were intriguing. There's my past. The present is something that they may have talked to you about, and you're saying, I did this because you suggested this. So this is talking about, I'm researching the internship you mentioned. And then the future is, can we meet again next month? It could be, may I follow up with you again? But you always want to keep that relationship going and see. Now, you probably don't want to meet with them every week, but this person can lead to be a mentor, and how you're going to communicate with them in the future. So again, here's after that conversation has happened, I just showed you a sample of the email note. You want to kind of send out that appreciative note within 24 hours of the conversation. You can either email or if you happen to have their actual physical address, you could mail it. I don't get a lot of mail in my mailbox, so sometimes it's nice and it stands out a little bit more when I get a handwritten note. We want to keep track of everyone that we've met, organize them, whatever works for you. If it's a spreadsheet, you can write down their contact information, some of the actions that they talked about, action items that they suggested to you that you're going to follow up with, any sort of small notes, like if they mention something, kind of maybe even off the cuff, write those down so that when you go back and talk to them, you can bring those things up. And you want to keep figuring out what your timeline is for connecting. So for me, I usually reach out to my past contacts every 6 months. And how this works for me is because I'm in the higher education world, the space, we're very semester based. So usually at the end of the fall semester, I reach out to a lot of my contacts that are in higher ed and say, hey, how'd your fall semester go? What are you looking forward to in the spring? And then the same thing will occur as summer approaches is, hey, I hope you had a great, academic year. And just, this is what I accomplished, here's some of the things I'm looking forward to next year. So just keeping my contacts kind of abreast of what I've been up to. And then they share with me. So then we're just deepening that relationship. And so, staying in touch again, however that works for you. For me, it's usually an email. Years ago, it used to be a formal letter because I was, born way back with the dinosaurs when we didn't have email so much. So I used to actually write handwritten, but now email has made keeping in touch much easier and giving updates to those individuals. And then consider what you can do, sharing those success stories, serve as a mentor, with all your connections. And, as I said before, get comfortable hearing the word no from people that may, not have an opportunity for you, or they may just don't have the time to meet with you. Again, that doesn't mean the end of the relationship. It just means not now. So keep those things in mind. That's what I have for you as far as networking, the strategies and whatnot. So I'd love to answer any questions, and Katie's here and can answer anything that's popping up. Do we have anything in the chat?
No, we don't. Does anyone have any specific questions? I know some of you mentioned, oh, Katie, you do. Go ahead.
I have a question about past contacts because I've never had like LinkedIn or anything. Is it weird to add people on LinkedIn now once I set up my profile, and like how should I go about doing that?
No, that's the best way to start building that network connections. And so, because there's a limited characters that you can kind of put into that LinkedIn note, but when you do start to connect with people, you always want to add a little personal note. So when you find their profile on LinkedIn, don't just hit connect and send it off right away.
Yeah.
There will be an option to add a note. And so here you can say something, hi, I'll use my Katie Ferruza. Hi, Katie, I met you at the recent workshop. I've just started my LinkedIn profile and I'd love to add you to my network. Something as basic as that. Now, as it expands, like if you go to a conference or something, oh, I heard your, talk at this recent, NACE conference. I'd love to connect with you. This is the best way, so as you're starting, connect with every person that you've ever met that you want to have in your network.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, I put some things in the chat over here. So there are collaboration hours are Monday through Friday, 1 to 4. You can just drop by and Zoom right now. So like for your question, Katie, like that's a good place to get started. You can meet with one of our advisors or peer career advisors, or you can also schedule appointments with our advisors, but we can help you get started on your LinkedIn profile, give you feedback on your LinkedIn profile, help talk to you about like what to include in the networking note, like Michelle's been describing, all of those things if you're not quite sure how to navigate these platforms. There are a lot of tricks and tips with LinkedIn in particular. There's different groups you can join, lots of things that you can do with it. Does anyone have other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up or post them in the chat.
I have a question for you. So this was very helpful for like contacts that I might have a connection with. But in the case of trying to reach out to like recruiters or people that I don't know, might be like third degree or more on LinkedIn, then is it sort of the same process, or like I don't really know how to approach reaching out to people that I've never met?
And yes, it's very much the same. You'll find that connection. So you have to figure out why you're interested. So, I'm interested in exploring opportunities at JP Morgan. And then, so there's a connection right there. So as I kind of talked about, figure out what your ask is of them. And you basically can reach out to anyone as long as you tell them why you're reaching out to them. Now, I don't suggest that you reach out and go, I need a job, and that's why I'm reaching out to you. But you could always ask for advice, and that usually opens the door. So, maybe you've applied for a position somewhere and you see that there's, now you were talking more of a recruiter. I've recently applied to XYZ internship. I was hoping to gather some more information. So you're not asking for the internship, you're asking for information. And so then that's when you can ask those really intelligent questions to get more involved in things. And sometimes it's easier to reach out to people that you have no idea who they are because there's not as much tied to it. So does that kind of answer the question a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a follow-up. So I was just looking at recruiter profiles, and I don't know if that's weird or not, because it like pops up like someone looked at your profile. Is that like weird? Because I went through many.
No, it's very similar to when you applied to colleges and you reached out to the admissions counselors at those particular schools. It shows that you have interest. And so if a recruiter, and many recruiters are using LinkedIn. I just got a request last week for someone who had seen my profile and said, hey, we have an opportunity, that you may be interested in. I'm a recruiter for XYZ, institution. So if they see that, oh, wait a minute, this individual just clicked on my profile, I'm going to look at their profile. So you're going to want to make sure that you've got a solid profile. Now, so if you're using LinkedIn and like looking at recruiter stuff, make sure you're up to date with all your stuff and really talking about all your accomplishments, because they're going to come back and start looking at you. But it does show that you have an interest. You're not just sending out, resumes and applications, if you will, to everyone. So.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. Katie, can you put the little, the survey in for them
Yes,
to answer? And then if people have more questions, they can do that. But
absolutely.
Yep,
That's all in there. So
Okay.
right in the chat, you can see there's a link and some information about our collaboration hours. There's just a link to the Greene Center website in general with a lot of the resources that Michelle was talking about today. And then at the bottom, there is just a brief survey if you wouldn't mind filling that out quickly and giving us some feedback on the workshop today. We'd really appreciate it. And, we definitely hope to see you engaging with the Greene Center in a variety of ways, and we can really help you through this whole networking process, because I know at the beginning many of you said anxiety came to mind. It can be a bit daunting, although it's hopeful as well, and it's certainly, like all the things Michelle was talking about, it's a very important and crucial process regardless of what your goals are right now. So yeah, if there's any other questions, feel free to hang out and ask us. If not, if you wouldn't mind giving us some feedback. And anything else that you have, Michelle?
No, I just want to make sure that everybody has gotten all their questions answered. Obviously, we've shared that they can drop into the virtual collab hours, schedule an appointment to talk through anything that they've had questions about. I think looking over the resources on our website are helpful, but they have us here if they want to ask any more questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of students think of us for help with resumes and stuff like that, which we absolutely do, but you may not think of us for things with like LinkedIn profile reviews and just the feedback on networking notes and things like that. So definitely want to make it clear that we can also help with those things.
And I just want to thank everyone for, listening to our presentation this evening and joining us, around our dinner hour. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Nice to meet you all.